Hey everybody, Brian here from quantlabs.net. I just want to talk about in this particular video a concern about one of my Quant Elite members. Originally we envisioned using both Python and C++ for all the course material that I'm showcasing. Various reasons I've got a video on that if you want to see that. So let me just go to my channel. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it, but I'll do my best. Hey there, how's your trading going? Up. Python versus C++. Hopefully I can find the particular video. Here we go. Okay, so this is the video I'm looking for. When to use C++ versus Python high-speed automated trading with an algo. I'm not going to get into. I'll give you the short end of it, of the difference between the two. If you're going to use C++, you're going to use it for intraday high-speed trading. And there's nothing else. I have experimented with Java. It's okay, but I really think the future is going to be in what they're calling modern C++. Much easier to work with, more in the line of C#, and they're implementing all this in C++ version 2014 script, the 2017 script, and they're already working on the 2020 what do you call it? The 2020 spec. I'm sorry. So they're already that far out, and the language is getting much easier to use. Beautiful thing about C++ is that you can be on any platform outside of Windows, because obviously Microsoft likes to bastardize the language. But there's the pure C++ way, which I focus on, and that's when you use C++ is for high speed, low latency, and really, really advanced, really low level stuff. That's where I'll stop with C++. That's where really quick analysis. I kind of covered it in my last private webinar meeting with part of my course on the features and options. I've addressed it in that. The other time when you use Python is when you're just doing slow moving data, like a couple of days or a couple of weeks to months, and you just want to download some data, generate a chart, and build some trading rules around that, and put that trading decision or signal into a database, like in my case Redis. Python's fine for that. It's very convenient to write those kind of scripts. Very quick and dirty ways to do it. That's the basic difference between the two. Here's where the problem comes into play. Where this person has started from really ground zero. And I always salute this guy for his drive and motivation, which is the key to all of this. He's probably one of the only guys out there that's come this far from very little knowledge, and the amount of overwhelm he's gone through learning Linux and Python. So because of this person, he's getting a little impatient, and I understand that. As you know, if you ever come into my infrastructure building block course, which I show you right here, and this will continue as part of my overall courses that I'll have, but this will be a separate course from everything else, and that won't be part of my future memberships. But this will be a standalone product. I don't know the pricing, but it probably could be worth quite a bit of money. But here we have 10 steps to build out a very basic, primitive trading system. And these are what you got to understand is why this language. Let's build the environment for, in this case, Python. And the overall different components of a trading system, be it a database, be it Redis, Mongo. We've covered both. How to interface with the broker, interactive brokers, TWS, Yahoo for basic data, and charting, and then eventually GUI front end. I can break out each of these, which I'll do in a minute, but this is how involved over 10 weeks to build this basic trading system with the source code that's provided. Again, that's currently part of this existing membership, But once this all gets stripped out, this will be a standalone product. So to answer his question, where the difficulty came out of this, right here, the very last step, this GUI front-end customization, which from my perspective is pure hell, because you have to worry about, well, are you going to build, like, are you using Qt, or what other people call it, Qt and Qt, I guess is the other expression, like just spell Qt, or we demoed other Python packages and libraries, which were just pure hell to work with. But I found a decent one, WX widgets for C++, so that's cool. The other option that I'd be pretty comfortable with is using MATLAB, and the new MATLAB 2016A has some really great app design and rapid application development tools to build out graphical user interfaces, GUIs as we call them. So there's numerous options, but here it's just not up to my standards compared to what you can get with. I can bash Microsoft product all I want, but I mean, I'll tell you, the Visual Studio is still king. Windows or not, that is still the best IDE out there, but it's on Windows, and you know my stance on Windows. So, what are the options moving forward? Well, I've already talked about Swift in the Mac OS. I've already, in another previous video, 2 videos ago, talked about Android versus iOS versus Windows. If you're going to deploy a live trading system on Windows and Android, you're asking for a whoop load of trouble with the security issues, concerns, and latencies that come with those platforms if you deploy it on those platforms. Just not secure, not smart, especially when you grow an account. And each and every day I have to do some kind of cleaning with malware bites or Norton. It drives me crazy. And then there's a latency on top of it. No thank you. So when I made the switch from Windows 10 to Mac OS, which is now called Mac OS, until a couple of months ago it was called Mac OS 10, I haven't had really any issues. So I'm very comfortable with Apple product. I'm 15 minutes away from a store, so if I have a problem I go yell at somebody at a store versus over the phone from some dude out in the Philippines maybe somewhere, or do that like Microsoft does. And it's just the whole process and the whole service is much easier for me. And as I said, when it comes to my trading system, that is key. That's why I'm now moving on Mac OS. And on top of that, if you don't know, the new, which has been out for about 2 years now, the Swift programming language for iOS devices like iPhone and iPad is very secure. I mean, you've read about the Apple stance and trying to fight the hacking and whatever else on the security. Apple has gone to all-out war with the NSA and the government of the U.S. To really secure those devices. So again, that adds trust from my point of view. Now, this new language is very powerful. It's open source, but there is the WebKit or the user interface toolkit. If you use a great IDE like Xcode, it's awesome. So if people come to me and ask me, what should I look at? I'm going to tell them straight up, look at Mac technology and look at iOS technology. It's secure, it's easy, and it's somewhat open source, and it's free. And it's just on the same level as Visual Studio. But the beautiful thing is you're not dealing with Microsoft and Windows technologies, as I've previously talked about. So that's the direction I'm going. And then again in that same video, 2 videos ago, I talked about mobile, and PCs are dead pretty well. Just look at the market of the last 2-3 years. They're just dying. So when it comes to deploying my trading systems, specifically my GUI-based systems like this section I just talked about, and the issues that come with it, because hey, it's open source, it's just not slick. I don't want to stay on Microsoft technologies for obvious reasons with Windows and stuff. Yeah, Visual Studio is great, but I really don't trust it. So again, my other alternative is the Xcode. It is the Apple technology, and Xcode is that IDE that I'm looking at. So moving forward, I'm going to be looking at deploying all the charting, all the GUI stuff on that platform. And then I can put that with the language Swift, deploy it onto a desktop. I can deploy it onto a watch, and I can deploy it onto an iOS device like an iPad or an iPhone. So that's why I'm going that route. And what's coming out of that, let me see if we can pull up the right document. Voila! Here we are. This is exactly what I want. In another video, I talked about the different services I'm looking at, chat room, data analytics, blah, 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 blah. But then we're moving into private workshops. Now, I'll talk about this one while I'm not on the topic, but I'll talk about this one, is a Swift workshop. I have no idea when I'm going to do it, but it's going to be in the next few months. And it's going to be 8 hours on a Saturday, so people will have no excuses not to come. And it's going to be, I don't know, 4 hours, 8 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday. And we're just going to do that live event. The one time it's going to be recorded, and it's going to be, again, sold as a standalone product. But if you're one of my members, you get to go to that for free. Hey, I'm that kind of guy. And then that's the plan of action. If you want to follow the path that I take, please understand why, as I said in this particular video, why I am using Xcode and Apple OS 10 Mac OS and this new language from Apple, open source again, called Swift. If you need to know more information, and I just hinted for this guy, this elite member, is if you come under my playlist on my YouTube channel and just go under Apple Tech, I got a whole slew of videos on why I am using Apple technology, Apple Xcode and Swift and all that. So you can always go through all this stuff. Lots of videos there. And the real reason why I'm doing it. And all the different libraries that are available for GUI development. And it's really exciting. It's what's coming out of the .NET, they're now putting into both Android and iOS, because they know they want to exist in 2 to 3 years or 5 years from now. The .NET and the Windows stuff, it's going to die. It's just going to die. The market's not going to be there. It's all going to be on iOS or Android. And if I had to choose one of the two, I would bet the farm on iOS and Mac stuff over Android any day. But again, it's not my money. And again, I've got another video. If you want to learn the language, check this video out where IBM is right behind it and saying it's enterprise level ready. And IBM is really in on this language. And I've talked about when IBM, back in the day when they were cool, and I still think IBM's cool, where they talked about Java and they just went full forward with the Java stuff, and they're now doing it with Swift. That's how they're betting their enterprise on Swift and Apple technology from IBM. So again, there's a better reason, not just me, the numbnut, talking on a microphone behind a computer screen. It's IBM's also choosing this technology. So hopefully that will help you have a better decision. Stay off of Windows, stay off of Microsoft. It's becoming evil stuff. Okay, privacy is a big deal for me, especially on live trading accounts. So again, let me just I'm always going off on a tangent here. My apologies. With a Mac OS, I feel you is probably the path, especially with Swift. Currently, I'm not in the position to purchase this side of X. I think this is meant Xcode or maybe Xmas. I don't know his time period or whatnot. But he's asking about the virtual environment of Mac OS. That is a good question. But let's go to YouTube, because YouTube, you can typically find stuff on YouTube on anything. So let's see if we can find a video that will show you how to set up Mac OS, let's say 10 on VirtualBox. There we go. There's tutorials and showing you how to do it. So the answer is yes, it can be done. It has to be. There's lots of videos on it. So yes, you can do it. Just got to figure out a way to do it. Now, the other thing I forgot to mention is the IDE battle when it comes to Linux. This is specifically for C++. I've looked at CodeBlocks, CodeLight, all these other IDEs, and they're open source. They're maddening. They drive me mad. This poor guy, who's come a long way, is just getting frustrated. I don't blame him. So let's try to find a solution. Now, in the meantime, you've heard me say really nice things about Microsoft Visual Studio. For the short term, this is what I would suggest. Look at Visual Studio for Windows. No problem. You can get C++, no problem. You should have no problem using my source code from the courses that I'm doing right now. You should have no problem with that, with the makefile. That's part of the C++. And again, I can show one-on-one how to do that But with Visual Studio, if you want to stay on Ubuntu or just Linux development, I guess is the right term, what you'll find here is some really interesting things. So you can develop C++ for Linux as a target. So I'm just trying to, yeah, here you go. This one actually talks about it, the extension that Microsoft just released. This is kind of cool, but every time I try to run these, it's just the Microsoft way. It just doesn't work on the get-go. But if you go through this tutorial, this will walk you how to target your compilation process for a Linux environment. So this is another option you can have if you don't want to go Mac. You want to use a good IDE in Windows, Visual Studio, but you can then target a Linux virtual system, virtual box, I guess, or virtual machine, specifically Ubuntu. You can do it from within now Visual Studio. So that's pretty powerful as an option. So you could check out this. This is an option, but you want my honest opinion as a recommendation. You've heard me talk about Mac OS 10 or Mac OS. I would recommend at the end, target that as your end deployment system for now, as your development environment. And if you want to develop some very slick Apple, Swift libraries for charting, there's a whole slew of them now. They just came out. There is SideChart just came out from Windows, fantastic library. Also from the .NET world came Terra. God, I can't remember the name. Terra. There's another one in here, but you'll notice. Actually, I do talk about them in this playlist under the Apple Tech right here in this video. I talk about that, the packages. Actually, I could probably do it this way to get. And the one I'm probably looking at right now.
Let's suppose that you're writing a really
Yeah. Let me just show you. If you just follow the links in here, the one I'm probably pretty strong I'm going to go with, but don't quote me on this right now, is the Swift library I'm looking at is let me see here. But you can see here I've got there's SideChart. Now as this one I'm looking at is the Telerik. It's $500. It's really good. I may end up from what I'm researching. This is how I'm seeing it. You want to learn Swift? Go to this site here at Apple to learn Swift Playgrounds. They've got an app for it for iPad. You got to have iOS 10, but it's pretty cool. It's designed for 10-year-olds, little kids, to learn how to program and specifically learn how to learn Swift. So that's a great resource. I haven't played around with it yet, but I've heard very good things about it. If you want to see what IBM's doing in the world of Swift, just check out their developer works. This is the exciting thing about Swift, is the charting is coming alive in Swift, and it's really slick. So for instance, if you want to do SideChart for, you read this here, for real-time ticking stock charts, awesome. It's $1,000. So that would be one app I may design. The other one that I'm really excited about is just static charts, and that is part of the Telerik. And there's some other really cool components in Swift that you can do. So these are probably the two interesting charting libraries I'm really digging from both Telerik and SideChart. And then, again, if you go into this playlist here, you'll see some of the other ones here. There's one called N-Charts that I've looked at. That's pretty cool. And there's a couple other ones as well. So just go through it on your own time. It's pretty exciting, the direction that this could lead into. So again, I'm wanting to do this one-time workshop on it. Okay, so enough of that. That's on Swift. And the other thing I need to mention about Xcode, the IDE from Apple for both Swift It also supports C++. So you can now do the same thing as if you are using Visual Studio, let's say in Windows, which is like 80% of the people out there. Yeah, you can still target the Linux, as I mentioned earlier, as an extension. But Xcode could do the same thing, where you are it supports two current languages, Swift and the C++ as well. So you're not at a loss using Xcode on Mac OS X. And it's, again, you're in a secure environment. And you can also target, if you're going to use C++, be able to target the backend, which obviously your Linux is going to be part of. So you can still keep your Python scripts, you can still do all that stuff, and that's why I'm pumping everything, all the data into Redis, the database, because all these different languages that we use will be able to access the data from one central repository using Redis, SQL, no SQL. So that's the reason why I'm using Redis. Okay, so let's talk about some other cool stuff. Hopefully I'll cover that. All right, so I've talked about this other workshop. I haven't mentioned in this video. Interactive brokers, my broker that I'm most likely going to go with. It's the only broker I can go with, being here in Canada, and they're universal. Interactive is great. All my current audience is all for interactive brokers. If you're going to stay in Forex, okay, but I have not heard very good things on the API front. But again, I'll be doing a new workshop as well, not just on Swift, but also another one. I'm probably going to be building the courseware for that and setting a date sooner than later on IB, Interactive Brokers, TWS. Which leads me back to the original course, this one on the building blocks. So this is the building blocks. This will stay. This is not going to disappear. This will stay, but this will be now a standalone a product. And again, the pricing of this, probably if I include the futures and option strategy, this could easily go for probably at least $700, maybe $1,000. So again, if you're a Quant Elite member, please take advantage of it, because this will get broken out on top of this course. So let me break this down if people out there are kind of confused and overwhelmed by it. This course is really important to me. This is the reason why I'm keeping it. This is done, in the last 6 months, so it's not old. It's not using old technology. It is using Python 2.7 because it's a stable version, but there is a movement obviously using Python 3x, and at some point I will need to upgrade, but I'm not sure where I'm standing with Python in terms of my analytics, because I don't have to really educate people beyond in the next few months as I get out of that business. So I can just develop my own code and just focus on the report, the charts, the reports, and the data that all my systems combined will bang out. So it really doesn't matter how I'm doing it. If I'm going to stay in Python, even R, MATLAB, who knows? But it's going to be nobody's concern except mine. But when it comes to building out a basic trading platform, these are important steps, because here we talk about Python again. I've talked about C++ and Swift. If you're new to this, I wouldn't even recommend even venturing into that, because you're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to get anywhere, and I don't want to do that. I would strongly recommend you start here. Just get an idea of a roadmap of what is included in a trading system. Very basic stuff, but it involves and will show you the complexity that it brings, but it's still done in a very simplistic way with source code. So we talk about the languages, we talk about the Python stuff, we talk about how to set up your Python environment, which is not fun, but this video will help you build that out if you stay in the world of 2.7 of Python. We then talk about databases. MongoDB is a pretty cool database. It's open source, it's free, awesome. We also use the one I plan to use called Redis. It's an in-memory, but there's so many cool features in it that have been updated since this actual recording. And then we get into obviously your broker, this Python option. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's there if you want it. Also the free data from Yahoo Finance, how to integrate it into your scripts, that's covered. Charting. This is a really cool one because I take pride in this. Everybody talks about Matplotlib, which is the standard. That's fine. But if you want to do some live charting, which really Matplotlib can't do. There's another one called PyQt and another one that you could kind of serve up through a web browser, no different than an Apache web server called Boca. I demo that as well. But either way, these are fine for Python, but that brings me back to Swift. like for all the reasons that I mentioned. So that's all there. So hopefully this will answer this person's question, among other things, and straighten it all out. But the ultimate target I'm going after is Mac OS 10 for development, and when it comes to deploying, it will be probably Linux on the back end. When I say the back end, that's where the servers run. As I go low latency, running my Redis and all that fun stuff. So we're gonna have it all covered. Now, before I forget, one last thing. All this stuff I mentioned about C++ is all the easy peasy stuff, okay? But I want to show you where it gets really kind of crazy. If you want to stay in the world of as this person says, in a virtual machine like Ubuntu being Linux, for those that may not know, my favorite target Linux-like operating system is not Linux at all. It's actually Unix, using maybe something like FreeBSD, which is a BSD, which is pure Unix, not Linux, pure Unix for high-frequency environment. Which also brings me to the type of IDEs and development tools. If I was to stay on a Linux environment, this is just another option, but I would never expect anyone who's new to all this, but maybe there's some advanced people out there. If I go in and type in C++, Linux, Vim, and Tmux, this combination here, if you look for that search right here, Linux, C++, Linux, VIM, Vim, Tmux, you'll get how the professionals do it with C++ on the low level stuff. And this stuff looks cool. I haven't really played with it, but from what I've seen in these videos, this is the best way to develop in C++ in a Linux environment. So all these these wonky IDEs, people have totally abandoned that stuff because it just doesn't work as they upgrade, and there's so many bugs, and if you see my private stuff, you'll know what I mean. But this is probably the best ultimate way to do it if you want to stay in the world of, as I said, Linux, whatever Linux you want, even the BSD, with C++ development using these two tools, Vim and Tmux. So look at that. I'm not expecting you to know it. I'm going to be honest, I don't know this stuff either. But I just wanted to cover that in this video and answer our highly motivated student so that it can help him out. Hopefully I'll help you out and other people can take away some value from it as well. Over and out.